Hello and a very warm welcome to Hoddesdon, Hertfordshire for the latest round of the 2013 Club 100 Sprint Championships. We're at the Rye House Raceway for round 3 of the season. It's a circuit that almost guarantees plenty of action, and we have 6 cracking finals from premiers and light and heavy clubmans coming up. 3 wins and a second place in 4 final starts for Brian Trott takes him to a handsome lead of 27 points for this stage of the season, ahead of Baby Prem leader Peter Cole and Chris Hansen. 2 podium finishes at Bayford Meadows for reigning champion Chris Powell gets his championship underway, and he moves up to 4th place, 35 points off the lead. And Brian Trott has continued his rich vein of form into the morning heats as he qualifies on pole position ahead of Oliver Hallwood. Heat 1 winner Ian Blake qualifies inside of row 2 with Darren Teal on grid 4. Jonathan Lissider and Matt Brooks start on row 3, leading Baby Prem, Jay Elliott and Champion Powell on row 4. Parmveen Ajar and Jeff Saunderson round out the top 10 of a bumper 27-car grid. Brian Trott controlling the pace. We're waiting for the Union flag, rolling up the start now. The Union flag is flying. Who's going to get that hole shot? Allwood tries to move over on Ian Blake, but it's Trott leading into stadium for the first time. There's a big squeeze on in the midfield, and Matt Brooks is in the tyres and out of his car. So it's Trott leading from Lissider, Darren Teal, Ian Blake, a gap then. Now Johnny Goddard coming through, and there's more contact at the first hairpin. Jeff Saunderson and Alex Vincent forced to take to the escape road. And clerk of the course, Russ Pittingale, has seen enough. This final has been aborted. We'll go for a regrid and a restart. So here we go then, Brian Trott controlling the pace once again, and he's got the drop on Allwood into turn 1. He leads, now can Blake get up on his bumper? It's Darren Teal coming through from the second row trying to get past Blake. He's slotted into 3rd, Allwood down to 4th, but at least he's made it through stadium this time. Blake goes to cover. Filtering down at the hairpin, there's heavy contact in the midfield again. Chris Powell unhappy, contact probably with Jamie Crease. In the hairpin too, it's still side by side, and there's more contact on Powell. This time from Scott Martin. There was heavy contact there with Stu Simons, and Alex Vincent's been turned around. On board with Tim Clark, Pete O'Connor going round the outside, picking up places cheaply. Opportunist move from O'Connor, and it's worked. End of lap 1, Trott leads Blake, Teal, Allwood, Jonathan Lissider, Jay Elliott, Matt Brooks, Parmveen Ajar, Jeff Saunderson, Jamie Jenkins up to 10th. On board with Clark again, that's Haim ahead of us. He's got Andrew Johnson and Harry Landy going at it on his bumper. Trevor Randall still running, but broken away from the back of the field after that contact off hairpin 2. Alex Vincent just getting going now, and he'll be in the way of the leader as the end lap 2. Allwood trying to hold off Lissider. Saunderson trying to hold off Jenkins in the fight for 9th place with Johnny Goddard and Peter Cole. End of lap 2, and Brian Trott's lead is 0.4 of a second ahead of Ian Blake, and Jonathan Lissider is under pressure from Jay Elliott in the fight for 5th, and Jenkins puts his nose inside Saunderson, and Goddard picks them both off through stadium. Great move from Johnny Goddard. He moves up to 9th, but here comes Jenkins at the hairpin, and he's through. Chris Powell side by side with Cole and Simons on the outside. Down in a hairpin 2. Cole keeps his nose in. There's more contact, and that's pushed Saunderson wide, and it's 4 wide off the corner. And Saunderson is squeezed into the tyres. Some will tell you that's just the nature of Rye House. Others would say that's the nature of Premier Class these days. So coming round to finish lap 3, Brian Trott's lead, 0.35 of a second on Ian Blake, who's got 3/10 on Darren Teal. Fastest lap times from the heats and this final will set the grid for final 2, and Jay Elliott is currently on pole position. Scott Martin down the inside of Jamie Crease, returning to Club 100 action. Whoa, and there's more contact coming out of the S's, down to the hairpin. And Crease has gone through on Scott Martin. Richard Haim trying to find a way around the outside, won't get it done there. Tim Clark sticks his nose up the inside. And Richard Haim is now boxed in, but the road goes in his favour, into pylon. So coming round to finish another lap, there's the leading trio. They've dropped Oliver Allwood, who's stuck in a battle, a 5-way dice over 4th place, with Elliott, Lissider, Ajar and Brooks. Jenkins coming through in 9th place. Andrew Johnson struggling to make progress from the back of the grid. He's just gone past Harry Landy for 21st. Oliver Allwood still under pressure from Jay Elliott, they're beginning to drop Najjar. And Johnson's lost out again to Harry Landy. A tough nut to crack. Down the inside, Dan Underhill. Can he make that work? He'll be slow off the corner. Back up front, Trott, Blake, Teal. It's a three-way dice for the trophies. And Trott's going to cover off Ian Blake. And Allwood's lost out to Najjar, and he'll lose out to Listener and probably Brooks here, as he's hung out to try on the outside through Stadium. But he's hung on long enough to be on the inside coming out of Stadium, so hangs on to that spot. And now it's Parnveen Najjar's turn to be under pressure from Jonathan Listener in the red. And this battle is allowing Jay Elliott to pull clear. He's got a few kart lengths, that probably will be enough. And Jamie Jenkins now under pressure from Chris Powell. Powell in 10th place, trying to make progress. Darren Teal on the bumper of Ian Blake, coming on to the main straight, and Brian Trott sweeps to the inside, trying to shake off Ian Blake. Jamie Jenkins realises who it is, and he's prepared to let him go through. Powell picks up the fastest lap in the slipstream of Jamie Jenkins, and maybe Jamie thinks Chris Powell can tow him up to the back of Matt Brooks, or to a fast time, and a good grid slot for final two. Johnny Goddard on his bumper, and this barrier has been moved back from the apex of the hairpin. Jay Elliott lucky to keep that off the tyres, using all the road, the block paving and the patio slabs in pylon. On to the main straight again, and we're through half distance now, and it looks as though Trott's beginning to pull out a car length as Ian Blake is under pressure from Darren Teal over second place, and Teal's down the inside in Stadium. You saw that move begin down the main straight now as Ian Blake got an immediate response. For Darren Teal, no he doesn't. Sweeping through the hairpin, using a lot more of the apex now than they did before, using all of the exit and a bit more. Don't believe what they say about the track is between the white lines. Not here at Rye House, it isn't. So coming round to start lap 9 of 13. 13 laps as this final has been shortened after the incident on the first start of this final. And Trott's lead is 0.3 of a second on Darren Teal. And Darren Teal has got a sniff of a win here. Trott's got his work cut out. Jay Elliott trying to come across to Ian Blake, and he's coming across. And Parnveen Najjar, this final could close up again. If Darren Teal gets involved with Brian Trott, I could see this concertinaing back up into a 6-7 kart dice before the finish. Pete O'Connor trying to close in on Sammy Sepler in the fight for 15th. Crease in 17th, they're behind Chris Hansen. So Trott takes a look over his shoulder, and it's Darren Teal trying to run him down. And I think Ian Blake's beginning to lose touch. Another fastest lap from Chris Powell, securing pole position at the moment for the second final coming up later. And Powell's got across to Matt Brooks. It's taken 5-6 laps to do it, but he's there now. He'll be looking to pick up positions, trying to improve his points score. Will he strike down the main straight? He's trying to set him up. Taking a wide line into the last corner for a fast run out of the corner and down the main straight. And he's right in the tow going down to Stadium. Stu Simons has caught up with Johnny Goddard in what is the fight for 11th place. And that barrier is definitely being moved back every lap. Eventually, I'm sure this camera will be pointing towards pylon. So Trott, Teal, Blake, and it is a four-way dice now as Jay Elliott goes straight through on Ian Blake. What a good move. Clean and hard. And Parnveen Najjar now is immediately on the bumper of Ian Blake. I'm not too sure Ian Blake was awake to that move, and he's about to be dumped out of 4th place. Parnveen Najjar can't get it done though, and Teal is looking down the inside of Brian Trott at the hairpin. It's a lap and a half from the finish. And you saw Chris Powell go through on Matt Brooks there down the inside. It's game on at the front. Trot under pressure from Darren Teal. And Jonathan Lister has come across as well. And now Ian Blake has 2 problems behind him. Final lap board has been made ready. It goes out to Brian Trott. His lead is still just under 0.3 of a second on Darren Teal. Jay Elliott is a second off the lead and looking comfortable for 3rd place. Ian Blake under pressure from Parmveen Najjar and Jonathan Lister in the fight for 4th. Down at the hairpin, Blake forced to cover. There's contact with Najjar, who runs him out wide, and Jonathan Lister is through to 4th place. Ian Blake comes back on through the escape road, and there's more contact, and that forces Chris Hansen to run wide. Sammy Sepler trying to hold off Pete O'Connor, Chris Hansen and Jamie Crease and Scott Martin, and there's more contact with Chris Hansen. Sepler stays in 14th place. Crease goes to the inside of Pete O'Connor, but out of the last corner, Brian Trott makes it 4 wins out of 5 ahead of Darren Teal and Jay Elliott as leading Baby Prem.
In 3rd place today in final 1 was Jay Elliott. In 2nd place today. Really pleased for this guy. He's had a bad start of the year, but a great drive today. 2nd in final 1, Darren Teal. But today's winner is starting to run away with this championship. He's in 6 rounds so far. I think he's had 4 wins, something like that. 4 wins, pretty impressive. Today's winner of final 1, Brian Trott. 4 wins out of 6 so far.
Fastest lap times from the heats in the first final dictate grid positions for the 2nd round of finals, and Premier Class Final 1 has provided most of the top grid positions. Chris Powell qualifies in pole position from Jamie Crease, marking his entry into Baby Prems with a front row start for Final 2. Parmveen Najjar and Jay Elliott start on row 2, Scott Martin and Pete O'Connor on row 3. Stuart Simons, Oliver Allwood, Jonathan Lister and Johnny Goddard round out the top 10. Peter Cole can only qualify on grid 16, and final 1 winner and championship leader Brian Trott has work to do from grid 19 on a 27-car grid. Well, there was fireworks at the start of the first final, required a restart. What will happen this time? Chris Powell controlling the pace over the start line. Crease wants to move onto his bumper, but Parmveen Najjar is right there. And Crease will lose out. Can he get on his bumper? Coming out of stadium, the funnel squeezes on. Richard Heim in 11th. Trying to stay ahead of Chris Hansen. The cavalry charge down the hairpin. Using all the road, the barrier and a bit more. Oh, Tim Clark takes a chunk out of that one. Jamie Jenkins on the bumper of Brian Trott. Look at the loading going on in the hairpin too. Well, it's done nobody any favours. Johnny Goddard ahead of Stu Simons. That's the battle for 5th place, and it's still side by side like a starting grid at Pylon. More contact. Oh! And Tim Clark fishtails his way to a stop on the infield. That's his final ruined at the end of lap 1. And it's Chris Powell leading by over half a second from Parmveen Najjar. Scott Martin, the leading Baby Prem, in 3rd. Jamie Crease on his bumper. Whoa, Stu Simons went a long way through Johnny Goddard at the hairpin. And Jay Elliott's got ahead of him as well. He moves Stu Simons out the way, complaining of loading from Johnny Goddard, who's probably loaded by Pete O'Connor. And Stu Simons goes back through on the inside of Pylon. Chris Hansen down the inside of Oliver Allwood, that's for 10th. Can he make it stick? Hands in the air. Yeah. Tim Clark dragging his car back to the track. It's taken a lap to get it that far. Contact warning going out. Allwood back through on Hansen. He's inside at stadium. The position is his. Peter Cole now forced to look round the outside. That won't work. Scott Martin tries to go down the inside in Najjar. Can't get it done. Spins out trying to avoid contact, and has probably ruined the race for Jamie Crease as well. Richard Heim at a halt as well. It's all a bit of a shambles here. We'll have to wait for this final to settle down again into some semblance of order. And there's no order but disorder down at the back of the field. Jenkins, Randall, Saunderson, Johnson. Johnson struggling to make any progress today. Lots of speed, but it takes a different set of skills to get through a Prem field for the light clubman champion. Dan Underhill at the back of the field. He's had a rather long day already. Big accident in the heats. Bravely got back in the car. It looks as though he's heading for the Premier Class exit. Down the inside, Trevor Randall trying to find a way through. Nothing doing. Further forward, Chris Hansen going to work once again on Oliver Allwood. This is the fight for 8th place. Coming round to finish lap 4. Hansen trying to get good drive off the last corner for a slingshot down the main straight. Used the slipstream into turn 1, but he's not close enough. And Chris Powell is pulling clear. Jeff Saunderson holding off Andrew Johnson at the tail of the field. That's a fight over 18th place. Now is Hansen in position to strike down inside hairpin 2. He's prepared to wait. He's got Peter Cole on his bumper, so he's got to be choosy. Stu Simons trying to run down Jonathan Lissider. Good showing from Simons. Almost in the trophies. Hasn't seen one of them for quite a while. Trevor Randall slipstreaming Matt Brooks down into turn 1, looking for 15th place. The leaders are already into hairpin 1. Here comes Trevor Randall. He'll be down the inside in the hairpin. Clean move, goes a long way in though. Runs out wide, and Brooks is back through. And Hansen now trying to close in into pylon. Allwood's gone in a little deep there. That might give Hansen a chance down at turn 1. Look at the lead that Chris Powell's got. We're coming up to half distance, and his lead is 1.7 seconds on Parnveen Najjar, and he's pulling clear. Oliver Allwood still under pressure from Hansen into Stadium. They're still fighting over 8th place, and Hansen looks keen to be by. Allwood forced to go narrow at the hairpin. Hansen going to go the long way round. Is he going to try the undercut? Well, it's not on. He's ready to strike into hairpin 2. Still not there, and Peter Cole is beginning to close. Hansen needs to get on with this one. Back on board with Jay Elliott. He's down the inside of Stu Simons. He hasn't got it done though. And Simons goes back through. Jonathan Lissider beginning to close on Parnveen Najjar. Chris Powell is 2 seconds clear. Stu Simons somewhat upset with Jay Elliott, slowing them both down. He senses there's a trophy on here if he can just get in touch with Jonathan Lissider. Allwood still on the defensive. I think that's just a matter of time. Pete O'Connor down the inside of Jay Elliott at the hairpin. So now it's Pete O'Connor moving into 5th place. Johnny Goddard behind Jay Elliott as well. And breathing space for Stu Simons to concentrate on Jonathan Lissider for a couple of laps at least. Johnny Goddard moving in on Jay Elliott. Out of last corner, once again Chris Hansen's under a kart length behind Oliver Allwood. Doesn't seem to have quite the top end. Well, final 1 winner, championship leader Brian Trott has just gone down the inside of Sammy Sepler for 12th place. Down at the hairpin, Allwood covering to the inside. Vincent going down the inside of Sepler. Gets the position, he moves up to 13th. Allwood slow off the corner. Is he going to be slow enough to allow Chris Hansen to tip in over the top into pylon? Will he go round the outside? He won't. Oliver Allwood though in very narrow this time, and that's given Ian Blake an opportunity to go down the inside of Peter Cole. Now will this be the opportunity for Chris Hansen now after the mistake in pylon? He's got to get on with this one, and he still can't get it done. Suffering for top end, but he gets through on the second part of Stadium, and Lister goes down the inside of Parnveen Najjar. Goes a long way, and it's all kicking off now. 3 fighting over the last 2 steps of the podium, and Stu Simons is in there. He's on the wrong side for pylon. Parnveen Najjar should hold on, but Simons goes round the outside. Can't get it done at the apex of pylon. And now he has Pete O'Connor on his bumper, and this race is coming back together, at least in the fight for second place. It's Lissider, Parnveen Najjar, Stu Simons, Pete O'Connor, Johnny Goddard and Jay Elliott fighting over 2nd and 3rd place. Brian Trott has caught up with Ian Blake, and he's down the inside and into the top 10 at Stadium. Further forward, Stu Simons looking to the inside of Parnveen Najjar for third. Keeps his powder dry, conscious he doesn't want to open the door for Pete O'Connor. Andrew Johnson picks off Sammy Sepala. That's for 14th place. So the light clubman champion from 2012 beginning to make a bit of progress here at Rye House. Leading Baby Prem is Jay Elliott in 7th. Matt Brooks under pressure from Trevor Randall. This is the fight for 16th place. Darren Teal trying to make progress on Jeff Saunderson, who's not prepared to give it up. That should let Sean Hollingsworth through. And indeed it does over start finish. Well, we're moving into the closing stages of this final. Chris Powell's lead is 2.5 seconds on a titanic struggle for second and third place between Jonathan Lissiter. Parnveen Najjar looks as though Lissiter's getting away. Stu Simons is losing touch on the trophies with the attentions of Pete O'Connor, Johnny Goddard and Jay Elliott. That takes us through to 7th place. Chris Hansen is 8th, Oliver Allwood and championship leader Brian Trott in 10th. Appears to be a contact warning board going out there. Allwood now under pressure from Brian Trott going down to Stadium. Further back, Randall still working hard to get past Matt Brooks. Pete O'Connor looking for a way by. Well, it's gone a little bit quiet, but you just know it's all going to kick off in a minute. Johnny Goddard trying to go round the outside of Pete O'Connor. Is he prepared to duke it out? Yes, he is, and it's a good move. And Jay Elliott comes back through, and Pete O'Connor will be hung out to dry if he's not careful. Well, somehow O'Connor's side by side with Johnny Goddard. But I think he's going to end up behind Jay Elliott in the Stadium. Indeed he is. So Pete O'Connor trying to make progress goes backwards. So the fight on for third place. Stu Simons, Parnveen Najjar. Simons leans in on Najjar and goes through. So up to third place and into the trophies. But that's as far as he's going to get, because Jonathan Lister is going to have second and nobody's going to catch Chris Powell this late in this final. Into pylon and out. Great camera work there from John Maycock. Coming through to start the final lap. The race leader is Chris Powell and his lead is 2 seconds on Jonathan Lister. He's cruising to the finish. On board with Chris Hansen, having got past Oliver Allwood. He's closing on Pete O'Connor, but he's going to run out of time to pick up any more positions. Leading Baby Prem remains Jay Elliott, running in 6th place. The leader of that sub-championship, Peter Cole, is running in 11th, ahead of Alex Vincent in 13th. Out of the last corner, it's a first win of the season for reigning champion Chris Powell, who now moves to 2nd place in the championship. Jonathan Lister finishes 2nd, and Stu Simons wins his first sprint trophy since November 2011. But it's Brian Trott who takes a 33-point lead into the next round at Ella Park at the end of May.
In 3rd place today, Stu Simons. And in 2nd place today, coming off of grid 9, that's a good drive from Jonathan Lister. But today's winner of final 2, this is a bit more like it, our current champion, Chris Powell.